It is 5:24 in the evening on November 29, 1989. The sun has already set over the Belgian lowlands. A cold, damp darkness, the kind that clings to your skin, has settled over the small German-speaking town of Eupen, a quiet community of 20,000 souls tucked along the eastern border. Just miles from Germany, fog hovers at ankle height along the cobblestone streets. The air smells of wet stone and coming frost. And two Belgian gendarmerie officers are driving a routine patrol along the road connecting Eupen to the village of Kettenis, when one of them leans forward in his seat and says, almost calmly, "What is that?" Officer Heinrich Nickel and his partner Hubert von Montigny slow the patrol car. Through the windshield, above the rooftops to their south, a massive object hangs in the sky. It is triangular. It is dark, not black, but a deep, featureless grey that seems to absorb the ambient light around it. At each of its three corners, a powerful white light blazes downward with an intensity that makes their eyes water. And at its center, dead center, beneath the flat underside of this thing, a red-orange orb pulses slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. It makes no sound, not a whisper, not a hum, not the faintest vibration in the air. The officers pull over, they step out of the car. The craft is close, horrifyingly close, hovering at what they estimate is rooftop level, perhaps 300 feet above the ground. At this distance, they can make out structural detail. Panels, seams, a geometry that looks engineered, deliberate, and completely unlike any aircraft either man has ever seen in a career spent under NATO flight paths. They watch for several minutes. The object drifts slowly, impossibly slowly, westward, then stops. Then moves again, then stops. It is in no hurry. It exhibits no concern that two uniformed officers of the law are standing in the road beneath it, staring up with their mouths open. Heinrich Nickel reaches for the radio. What he doesn't know, what neither of them knows, is that this same object, or something identical to it, is being observed at this exact moment by at least 30 other groups of witnesses across the Eupen-Kettenis-Lonson corridor. That within hours, the Belgian gendarmerie will be flooded with reports. That within weeks, the sightings will number in the hundreds. That within months, the Belgian Air Force will scramble F-16 fighter jets to intercept this thing. That their onboard radar will lock onto a target performing maneuvers that violate the known limits of physics and aerospace engineering. That a major general will stand at a podium and tell the world's press, officially, on the record, that the Belgian military cannot explain what is in their sky. And that 36 years later, they still can't. This is cosmic Casefile. And this is the case governments cannot erase. To understand why the Belgian UFO wave is different, why it occupies a category entirely its own in the history of this phenomenon, you have to understand who was watching. These were not conspiracy theorists scanning the desert with night vision goggles. These were not isolated farmers in remote provinces telling stories over beer. The witnesses in this case were police officers on active duty, off-duty military personnel who had spent careers identifying aircraft silhouettes, teachers walking home from evening classes, truck drivers on the E40 motorway, families sitting in their living rooms who looked out the window and saw something that did not belong to any nation on Earth. And they all described the same thing, a massive triangular craft, dark grey or black. 3 brilliant white lights at each vertex, a pulsing red or amber light at the center of the underside. Completely silent, moving at speeds ranging from a dead hover to extraordinary acceleration. Estimated size, between 100 and 300 feet across, some witnesses said it was as large as a football field. The consistency was staggering. SOBPS, the Société Belge d'études des phénomènes spatiaux, Belgium's most respected civilian UFO research organization, would eventually collect over 600 written witness reports during the wave. When researchers compared the descriptions, they found something that is almost unheard of in UFO case literature. Witnesses who had never met, who lived in different towns and different provinces, who had no communication with one another, were drawing the same object. Same shape, same light configuration, same behavior, same silence. The wave built slowly through December 1989 and into January 1990. Every week brought new sightings: Liege, Namur, the dark forests of the Ardennes, the suburbs of Brussels. Small towns whose names rarely appeared in any newspaper were suddenly the sites of mass observation events. 20, 40, 60 people standing in the street, pointing upward, watching this silent geometry cruise overhead, as if surveying the landscape below. Gendarmerie officers across the nation were filing reports that read like carbon copies. Triangular object, 3 white lights, red center light, no sound, low altitude, slow movement, sudden acceleration. Over and over, night after night, week after week. Belgium is one of the most densely populated and heavily monitored countries in Europe. NATO headquarters sits in Brussels. Military radar installations sweep the Belgian sky continuously. This is not empty airspace. This is not unobserved territory. And yet something enormous, something unknown, was moving through it slowly. Deliberately, repeatedly, without permission, without identification. And without the slightest apparent concern that an entire nation was watching. By March of 1990, the Belgian Air Force had seen enough. The night of March 30 into the early morning of March 31, 1990, is the night the Belgian UFO wave crossed from extraordinary into historic. At approximately 11:00 p.m., the Gendarmerie Dispatch Center in Wavre begins receiving a cascade of calls. Multiple police patrols in the Brussels capital and Walloon-Brabant regions are reporting a triangular object in the sky. This time, the reports are coming in fast. The object is being tracked visually by ground observers while simultaneously appearing on radar at the Glons and Semizake military radar stations. 2 separate installations. 2 independent systems, both painting the same unidentified return in controlled Belgian airspace. This is no longer a question of witness testimony. The object is now a confirmed radar target. At 12:05 a.m. on March 31, the Belgian Air Force makes the decision that transforms this case forever. 2 F-16 Fighting Falcons are scrambled from Petit-Rechain Air Base, just southeast of Brussels. Their mission: intercept and identify the unknown target. The pilots are experienced. The aircraft are equipped with advanced onboard radar and weapons systems. They climb into the cold night air and bank toward the last known position of the target. What happens next is recorded on the F-16 onboard instruments. It is later declassified. It is presented to the international press. And it defies every principle of known aerospace engineering. The F-16 pilots achieve radar lock on the target, not once, 9 times. 9 separate radar locks over the course of the intercept attempt. And each time, the object responds, it doesn't just evade. It performs maneuvers that the Belgian Air Force later describes as beyond the capability of any known aircraft. The object accelerates from approximately 150 miles per hour to over 1,100 miles per hour in a matter of seconds. The G-forces implied by this acceleration would be instantly fatal to a human pilot, 40 Gs or more. The object drops from 0 feet to 500 feet in under 60 seconds. A controlled descent so aggressive it shouldn't be survivable for any airframe, let alone any occupant. And on multiple occasions. At the precise moment, the F-16's targeting radar achieves lock. The object breaks the lock, not by moving away, but by doing something to the radar signal itself. The pilots report that the target seems to jam or spoof their systems at will. The F-16s chase the object for over 75 minutes. They never get close enough for a visual identification. The object remains ahead, always ahead, responding to their every maneuver with effortless countermoves. At no point does it behave aggressively. At no point does it flee the area entirely. It stays in Belgian airspace. It allows itself to be tracked. It allows the radar locks. And then, calmly, methodically, it demonstrates that the locks are meaningless, that the most advanced interceptor in the NATO arsenal is, against this target, functionally irrelevant. The pilots return to base, the radar tapes are preserved, and the Belgian Air Force begins the process of acknowledging, publicly, what just happened. In the days following the F-16 intercept, the Belgian Air Force does something that has almost no precedent in the history of military encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena. They tell the truth. Major General Wilfried De Brouwer, Chief of Operations of the Belgian Air Staff, convenes a press conference. He stands at a podium. Behind him, they display the radar data from the March 3031 intercept. The speed changes. The altitude drops, the 9 radar locks, the evasive maneuvers. He describes the capabilities of the F-16's onboard systems. He describes the parameters of what those systems recorded. And then he says, with the composed gravity of a career military officer, that the Belgian Air Force has no explanation for what was in their airspace. Not, we believe it was a weather phenomenon. Not, we suspect foreign military activity. Not, we are continuing to investigate a probable conventional source. No explanation, period. This press conference is broadcast across Europe. The radar data is published. The Belgian military makes the extraordinary decision to partner formally with SOBEPS, granting the civilian research organization access to military radar records, pilot debriefings, and internal communications. This partnership, a national military working openly and collaboratively with civilian UFO researchers, had no precedent in European history. It arguably has no precedent anywhere. SOBEPS researchers, led by physicist August Meeson and other scientists, begin the painstaking work of analyzing the accumulated evidence. They catalogue the 2,600-plus written witness reports. They conduct hundreds of interviews. They map the sightings geographically and chronologically, looking for patterns, flight paths, areas of concentration. They bring in aerospace engineers to evaluate the radar data. They consult with atmospheric scientists to rule out meteorological explanations. They examine every conventional hypothesis with the rigor of an academic peer review process. Stealth aircraft, The F-117 Nighthawk and B-2 Spirit were operational in the U.S. inventory by 1989, and speculation naturally arose that the triangular craft might be an American black project. But the hypothesis collapses under scrutiny. The F-117 is not a large craft. It's roughly 65 feet across, dramatically smaller than what witnesses described. It is loud, not silent. It cannot hover. It cannot accelerate from 150 to 1,100 miles per hour. It cannot drop 10,000 feet in altitude in under a minute. And the United States categorically denied flying any experimental aircraft over Belgian airspace, a denial that, given the diplomatic implications of unauthorized military flights over a NATO ally's sovereign territory, carried significant weight. NATO command confirmed no Allied aircraft were authorized in the areas and times of the sightings. Experimental drones. In 1989, drone technology was in its infancy. Nothing in any nation's inventory could account for an object of this size, silence, and performance capability. Laser projections or holographic displays. The object was tracked on multiple independent radar systems. Projections do not return radar signals. Mass hysteria. This is perhaps the most insulting hypothesis, and it was dismissed by the investigators most thoroughly. Mass hysteria does not produce consistent, independent, corroborating descriptions from thousands of witnesses who never communicated with each other. Mass hysteria does not appear on military radar. Mass hysteria does not cause F-16 targeting systems to achieve and lose lock 9 times in an hour. Mass hysteria does not make a major general stand at a press conference and admit his Air Force was outclassed by something it could not identify. Internal Belgian defense documents, declassified in subsequent years, reveal that the military took the sightings far more seriously than even the public press conference suggested. Memos exchanged between senior defense officials describe the object as representing, in their assessment, an unknown technology, phrasing that implies not merely an unidentified aircraft, but a technology operating outside the understood boundaries of physics and engineering. SOBEPS published their findings in 2 comprehensive volumes, the most extensive civilian military UFO investigation reports ever produced in Europe. The data was made available to the international scientific community, and the conclusion, across every analytical framework applied, was the same. Something real, something physical, something technologically advanced beyond current human capability was operating in Belgian airspace for 18 months, and no investigator, military or civilian, could determine what it was or where it came from. Let us be precise about what exists in the evidentiary record. There is radar data, not civilian airport radar, suggesting an anomalous blip. Military-grade radar from 2 independent NATO-integrated ground stations, Glons and Semizake, tracking a solid return that correlated with visual observations on the ground. This radar data was recorded, preserved, and declassified. It shows a target executing performance characteristics, speed, acceleration, altitude change, that exceed the capabilities of any known aircraft in any nation's inventory in 1990. Or for that matter, in 2025, there is F-16 onboard radar data, recorded directly from the weapons systems of interceptor aircraft during an active pursuit. 9 separate locks, 9 separate evasive responses. A target profile that does not match any known airframe's radar cross-section or performance envelope. This data was not leaked. It was not obtained through Freedom of Information requests years later. It was presented voluntarily by the Belgian Air Force Chief of Operations at an international press conference. There are over 2,600 formal written witness reports, collected and catalogued by SOBEPS with academic rigor. The witnesses include dozens of law enforcement officers, multiple military personnel, engineers, teachers, and professionals from every sector of Belgian society. The reports demonstrate a degree of internal consistency in object shape, size, light configuration, behavior, and sound profile that is essentially impossible to explain through suggestion, hoax, or misidentification. Independent witnesses in different towns on different nights, with no knowledge of each other's reports, produce descriptions that are functionally identical. And there is the Petit-Rechain photograph, taken in April 1990 by a resident of the small town of Petit-Rechain near Verviers. This image shows a dark triangular shape against a night sky with 3 white lights at its corners and a diffuse reddish glow at its center. It became the most analyzed and debated UFO photograph in European history. The image was subjected to extensive photographic analysis by multiple independent laboratories. In 2011, the photographer claimed the image was a hoax, a polystyrene model. Yet the claim itself remains controversial. Multiple photographic analysts who studied the original slide have stated that the light characteristics, atmospheric diffusion, and distance to subject calculations are inconsistent with a small model photographed at close range. The debate over this single image, in many ways, is irrelevant to the larger case because even without the photograph, the Belgian wave rests on a foundation of radar data and military confirmation that no single photograph could strengthen or undermine. The physical evidence portfolio of the Belgian wave is, in the assessment of researchers worldwide, the most robust and officially validated body of UFO evidence ever assembled for a single case series. It does not rely on anecdote. It does not rely on hypnotic regression. It does not rely on grainy footage or ambiguous sensor readings. It relies on the military infrastructure of a NATO nation operating at full capacity, tracking something it could not identify and could not intercept. The Belgian UFO wave ended as silently as it began. By the summer of 1991, the sightings tapered off. The triangles or the triangle stopped appearing. No final dramatic encounter, no climactic revelation. The skies over Belgium simply went quiet again, as if whatever had been watching had seen enough, or finished whatever it came to do. There was no official closure. No identified perpetrator, no recovered craft, no signals intelligence that decoded a transmission. No government white paper that explained, in reassuring technical language, what 13,500 people saw. The Belgian Air Force's file on the wave remains, to this day, officially unsolved. Major General Wilfried De Brouwer, who held that extraordinary press conference in 1990, continued to speak about the case throughout his career and into retirement. He never wavered. In interviews decades later, he maintained that the Belgian military encountered something that represented a technology beyond current human capability. He did not speculate about origins. He did not claim alien contact. He simply stated, with the measured precision of a lifelong military professional. That the evidence spoke for itself, and that the evidence had no conventional explanation. For the witnesses, the police officers, the families, the truck drivers who pulled to the side of the E40 and watched something impossible glide overhead, the wave left a permanent mark. Not trauma, necessarily, in the way that isolated abduction cases leave trauma, but something perhaps equally disorienting, the absolute certainty that the world is not what they were told it was, that the sky is not empty, that the authorities, even when honest, do not have answers. The Belgian wave is cited by UAP researchers around the world as the gold standard, the single best documented mass UFO event in recorded history. Not because of any single piece of evidence, but because of the convergence. Military radar, weapon system data, thousands of independent witnesses, formal government acknowledgement, and the complete absence of any conventional explanation after 36 years of analysis. Something was in the sky over Belgium. It was real, it was physical. It was tracked by the instruments of a modern military. And it answered to no nation, no flight authority, and no known law of physics. Whatever it was, it has not been explained, and wherever it went, it has not come back. Or perhaps it has, and we simply haven't been told. This has been Cosmic Casefile. Stay watchful, stay questioning. The sky remembers what we try to forget.